The early 1800s in the United States of America were a time of trouble and questioning. From religious revivals to calls for abolition, some saw great financial success while others suffered greatly, all while the list of differences between northern and southern states grew. Slavery grew ever present and ever profitable to slave owners in the antebellum South. However, the average enslaved American was about to gain reason to hope. With a country splitting at the seams and the mistreatment of enslaved blacks as common as North American cotton, an enslaved man by the name of Nat Turner was about to show the American slaver and citizen alike that slaves were not docile possessions, but human beings. Born into slavery October 2nd, 1800, Nat Turner grew up on a rural plantation in Southampton County, Virginia. Nat learned how to read at an early age, and with access to the Bible, quickly grew in intelligence. As recorded by fellow slaves, Nat was often found praying, fasting, and reading from the Bible. As Nat Turner grew into a man, he reported having visions and claimed them as messages from God. These visions would continue to direct his life and eventually lead to rebellion. Believing to have divine authority, Nat Turner preached to fellow slaves. He would eventually receive the name of prophet from his peers. And by his mid to late 20s, Nat Turner had a trusted following of slaves. One day, while working in the field, Nat received a vision from God, telling him that the time was soon at hand where the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Believing this to mean that God wanted Nat Turner to overthrow their oppressors, Nat Turner began organizing and planning a rebellion. Although Nat Turner had originally wanted to rebel on July 4th, 1831, but postponed due to illness, this gave Nat time to plan and strategize his rebellion. During this time, word spread further of his coming rebellion on the white man, as slaves, trusting him to be a man of God, continued to trust his divine call. After months of preparation, on the night of August 21st, 1831, Nat Turner with a dozen or so trusted slaves began marching into town and going door to door, freeing enslaved black Americans. Turner called for his group to kill any in their way. However, a local newspaper later noted, quote, Turner declared that indiscriminate slaughter was not their intention after they attained a foothold, and was resorted to, in the first instance, to strike terror and alarm, unquote. As they continued their march, a dozen or so grew to 100 individuals, then 200, now including men on horseback. Nat Turner had instructed his rebellion not to use muskets, as it would reveal them in the cover of night. So, as they traveled door to door, many were armed with knives, hatchets, tools, and other blunt instruments they could get their hands on. Killing as they went, they continued freeing any slave they could, murdering about 60 white Americans. With estimates ranging from 100 to 300 slaves in tow, Nat Turner's rebellion was eventually ended by the state militia, killing at least 100 slaves. In the following days, trials were held for some, but not for others. The Commonwealth of Virginia executed 56 black people, and later killed about 120 more who were not involved in the rebellion. What historical significance did Nat Turner's rebellion have? Nat Turner, in speaking on the rebellion in Southampton County, thought that revolutionary violence would serve to awaken the attitudes of whites to the reality of the inherent brutality in slaveholding. Turner later said that he wanted to spread terror and alarm among whites. Nat Turner's rebellion proved to be the deadliest slave rebellion in the antebellum South. The eyes of white Americans looked to these rebellious slaves likely contemplating the nature of slavery, while slaves throughout the South took courage and hoped for a day of abolition. This rebellion and others led to the tightening grip of slave laws in the South, and eventually furthering the divide between the North and the South, leading to the Civil War. After Nat Turner's execution, one must ask, was Nat Turner an extremist or a hero?